You know, I spend a lot of time alone because I think, I realized that my life wasn't dependent upon what other people thought. Although, and this is best because people can bring conflict or confusion into your life. And I think as you mature, I think company becomes, you value better quality of company, not just any company. That's where we get into like bad company corrupts good morale. I think looking back at my life, I've always kind of done things alone, maybe been set apart, as the Lord says. Maybe I never really, there was things I just never idolized either, like, so, when you examine and judge yourself and you start critiquing, refining your character, and kind of like getting inside about who you are, and realizing who God created you to be and what you're here for. Because in our immaturities, we always probably kind of question that, right? We're saying like, what's my purpose in life? Well, I started asking that because, in Egypt, I thought I was spiritually married to dark because, I think until we touch the hem of his garment, we really don't know. And this is why, but even so, in my adolescence, there was a lot of things I didn't understand or was against. Because in your purity, like I'm saying, people in their childhood, if you look back when you were a child and you see what you considered or what you accepted or didn't accept, or like look where your pain is, that's where you're going to be your greatest testimony, and probably the things that you need to overcome, I would say. Because that's why I would say I looked where my pain was, and that's why I said nobody could use anything from my past against me anymore because the Lord healed me from it. I tell people this testimony all the time, like when the Lord touched my life, and I knew that there was something greater for me. I remember skits, like spinning wheels, like a reel, like a film, a real film. And it was spinning around me is the best way I can describe this. And I think of the eye wheels in Ezekiel, but anyway, I kind of correlate it with like that. But it was like film reel, and it was just kept spinning. But in each thing, it was memories or moments of my life. And I remember when they were passing, going around and round and round, and I remember the Lord telling me, I'm taking these from you. They're not yours anymore. I'm taking them. They're mine. I'm relieving you of these things. And I remember like this burden being lifted off me, like, so this is why I always say, even when there's accuser of the brethren, like even when there's people that are saying like, because you got to remember they're in rebellion, so they're going to act like one mind with Satan, accuser of the brethren. They act like, so even when they do throw them sticks at me, I know that words, I don't allow them to have dominion over my life because I'm like, I know who I was. Why are we saying this? I was asking people this, like, why are we having this conversation? Because sometimes I feel like people, the tongue of the crafty, want to throw things up in you because some people aren't happy about your growth. These are your monitoring spirits, as a spiritual person would say. Because remember, an evil person's not happy for growth. They're not happy unless they're causing division in someone's life. Because in their rebellion, that's what they're doing. They're disruptive in their behavior. So then that's why I would say, well, wait a minute. When I was coming to this cross, I'm like, I started questioning, like, oh, wait. I was questioning conversations. I was questioning behaviors. I was questioning, like, because you start thinking about these little things that are big things when you're trying to overcome things. Like, wait a minute, this is not conclusive to my growth. I can't. And it's not about hate or dislike, because I don't dislike anybody. I don't hate anybody, because that would mean there was malice or unforgiveness in my heart. So that's why I always tell people, I don't hate anybody. I hate what people do. I hate like their bad behaviors because it causes problems in my life. I don't like anybody's rebellion, and nobody with a sound mind would. Nobody wants someone to afflict them all the time with bad words or profanity, or and the things I used to accept, I no longer will. And that's why I always say, there's things I just don't think about. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers, because I look back at fleeing my youthful lust, my immature lust, or my immature relationships that I had before Because sometimes it takes those immature relationships for you to see what works and what don't work. Some of the greatest life experiences are where your wisdom comes from. Some of the greatest prophets were sinners. A prophet, if you look up that word, is just a teacher or a counsel, someone with words of wisdom. So I'm like, I've learned a lot in this walk of life for me, and matured greatly. And now there's things I no longer will accept because I know without a reasonable doubt it could be detrimental to my well-being or the growth the progression that I've had in my healing, or my overcoming the things that were meant to destroy me, because sometimes those trials can ruin people. But for me, I think in my weaknesses, it made me strong because I never let it rip me apart or get a hold on me. And even if people have bad motives, even if people are doing their rebellious thing, it doesn't affect me. Because I'm thinking, well, there's something wrong with them, not me. You're not hurting me, you're hurting you, because that's what you're eating, the fruits of your labor, you're reaping what you sow. And if you're sowing all that animosity and discord in the world, in your life, and it's going to show out in everything you do. You're going to disapprove of your own relationships. You're not going to be happy with anything you do, because it's found within. If you're not a happy person, how can you be happy with anything? That's why I always tell people, I seen this little stick figure. It was a cartoon figure, and it was like, this little boy, a stick figure, female, I don't think it had a sex, but there was like a little bubble in its belly and it said happiness. And this guy looked at him and said, where'd you find it? I've been looking for that this whole time. And then this little stick thing said, it was inside me the whole time. And that's what I always think of. Your happiness has always been inside you. Anything you want is inside of you. Anything you require is inside of you. You got to dig down deep and find it. And you got to know what's acceptable or unacceptable. You got to find your peace. And then in that peace, you're not going to be derogatory to yourself or anyone else. Because you're at perfect peace with yourself. You're serving the Prince of Peace. You're at perfect peace with yourself. And it doesn't take anybody's determination to decide that factor. You have found it. You found it within. That's why I tell people, nothing in this world can bring you happiness. Nothing or no one. It's found within. And then once you find that inner peace or happiness within you, then someone can complement your life if that's what you choose. If that's what you choose. That's why I said, people are supposed to complement your life, not complicate it. But if we're not complementary of our own life, no one can enter into that or progress that growth. That's why and I'm just happy with myself. Not because I'm like pride. I'm not in pride. I'm humble. But, your spirit of Elijah is the spirit of truth. The spirit of truth comes upon you. You're restored. Restoration of the temple. I'm the temple. So the spirit of truth came on me. I examined and judged myself, and it restored me. And anybody can find restoration. The cross is available to anybody. I tell everybody, you're not a mistake. But, once the Lord touches your life, there's just things that aren't important to you any longer. I don't really feel like there's things in this world that I want. I don't want no complications. I don't want confusion. I don't want distractions. I don't, people with wealth are pierced with many sorrows. I don't want a lot of worries. I don't want a lot of bills. I don't want a lot of, I don't want a lot of things that will cause more trials in my life. So sometimes you have to deny. Like I remember the Lord telling me, don't go back into Babylon. I brought you out of it. So I'm okay. We learn to be content with what we have. Because if you want more, you're never going to be satisfied. You see what I'm saying? The want. And then if you always covet your neighbor, want what they have, never envy a wicked person, and never be jealous of what other people have, because you're never going to find contentment with yourself if you're always wanting to outdo somebody. That's ego and pride. That's like a competitor's heart. So I'm thinking I don't want what everybody else. And I really look back at my life and I'm like, I never really did. I never really did. So maybe I had what I needed all along. I just never knew it because my mind hadn't followed my heart yet. Sometimes say your heart will know or your mind will know, but they fight at war. The war is within. The war is within each and every person. So once you find that inner peace, the war is gone. The battle is gone. It's over. And then no one can include or disclude you because you're not worried about that. You're not, to be rejected by man is to be approved by God, and that's what we do. We seek the approval of Him. We're walking in this perfect peace, and we know we finally found the reason to be here. And it's not based on anyone else's acceptance. That's what it's all about. And I look back at my life, like I said, and I don't think I've always done my own thing. I've always walked alone. So maybe, like you said, I knew you before the womb. I set you apart. Because I always thought, like, I never cared what people thought about me. I mean, there were times, yes, but not like so much to where it succumbed me, you know. But, you know, like I say, in our immaturities, in our adolescence, we're not supposed to know everything. We're not supposed to. There's no way that's why the Lord accounts for that and says we flee our youthful lust. Because in our youth, and, you know, depending upon what our upbringings, like culturally, societally, familial, you know, all those factors vary into our identity and what we become. So those are the obstacles we need to fight against, because you know, we are who God creates to be. Every individual person, even with parents, like they say, you'll leave your family and you go find your husband and you start your own, you know. You're supposed to branch off and leave your family. No one's supposed to be more. So, you know, faith in who you are, faith in your marriage or whatever you're doing, you're supposed to leave your family. Because sometimes that can be a hindrance to you. Honestly, if, you know, when you come to Christ and your family's still under the curse or rebellious, you know, sometimes it might be healthier for a person to leave their family. It's not about hating or dissonance or separation or, you know, isolation. It's not any of it. But you see, like I say, when people don't been touched, they'll try to label you like they want to give you sicknesses because they don't understand set free. They don't understand what it means to be free inside in the mind and in the will and the heart. So, you know, they'll try to find some kind of sickness or label for you to water. Like put you in a statistical box that you just don't fit into, and they'll be like, you know, well, you're isolating or you're this. I don't feel the need to be in presence of all kinds of people all the time. You know, I don't feel like I need to be accepted or, you know, in the presence of company all the time. I don't think that that's required for me. I think I found my peace. I found my identity. And I mean, I just don't, you know, when you can sit alone as power that very few of the people in this world can handle. And if you're always searching or seeking something to feel fulfilled, you're never going to sit with yourself and be content. You're never going to find it. You're never going to love it. You know, like this, the Lord says, I have this against you, left your first love. Love yourself enough to know who you are and what your worth is, your value. And it's not found by the opinion of other people. Because sometimes people don't even know who they are. Sometimes people stay lost forever. And that's sad. That's why I'm like, I look at things differently at this cross. You know, and I think, wow, you know, that's the mourning I think you go into, the sackcloth. Because you're like, wow, they've never found it because someone destroyed them. They dissipated them or destroyed their well-being, their mind, their emotion. So they just kind of sat in that darkness and learned to be content with or complacent with oppression. Some people look at me and say I'm oppressed, but I just don't want the world. I don't think I'm oppressed. See, that's all a matter of opinion, because the Lord tells me to be content with what I have, and I don't want the world, because the world, love not the world, love the Father, Son. So, I mean, worldly people might think there's something wrong with the peculiar. We're peculiar. Worldly people they try to find something that's wrong with you. Like, they're trying to find what's wrong with me, and I'm seeing what's wrong with them. You know, we're just at different ends of the spectrum, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. Why is there got to be something wrong with me? Because I just don't want to do what everybody else is doing. Isn't that weird? So I'm like, you're not going to create a sickness for me to have. I'm not sick. I'm healthy. I'm making sound decisions for myself, and it doesn't have to be to your liking. If I'm not hurting myself or anybody else, it doesn't have to be to your liking.